There was a woman who lived in a very dangerous neighborhood in America, and she had been mugged many, many times. And one day at night, she saw a man in the distance and she knew he was waiting for her, about to mug her. And when she got very close to him, he was just about to jump and attack her. And she asked him a very simple question, a very casual question, and he stopped right in his tracks. What is this technique? What is this system? السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على رسوله الأمين وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. أما بعد. Today we're talking about the art of disarming people. It means you walk up to someone, maybe he doesn't like you in the beginning. How can I disarm him and get through that so he could listen to me, or I can communicate with that individual? Or someone is being rude, or someone is yelling and I want to calm them down quickly. This is what we're talking about. An interesting study was conducted in one of the universities. They brought an instructor to the students, but before they let him in, they introduced him twice in different ways. One time, they introduced him negatively to the students, and the other time, they introduced him positively to the students. The students were later on asked of what they felt of this instructor. All the ones that got the negative introduction disliked him more than the ones that got the positive introduction. So what they're saying is that they saw him through a certain lens, and no matter what he said or did, they continued to see him through those lenses. So if someone doesn't like you, no matter what comes out of you, they'll continue to see you through those lenses. So we're talking about disarming, trying to change that perspective or try to change the idea someone has of you. What are some of the techniques? From the things that are mentioned are telling jokes, for example. And what that means is that if someone is making you laugh, it's really hard for you to be hating him or to be angry with him at the same time. So for example, jokes disarm people. Maybe you walk up to someone who's had a bad experience with Muslims, and maybe you start off with a joke or something funny. And we used to always do that in our days when we're doing street da'wah and things like that. We joke with people, and people are like amazed that, oh, we thought these guys were strict and everything. So that disarms, joking, for example. Good manners. Again, it's hard to hate someone who has very good manners, someone who's very polite and who's smiling and giving you their full attention. So you naturally are drawn to people like that. So joking, having good manners, praising someone. If you praise someone, they can't hate you while you're praising them. Also, if you find out, even if you dislike someone, and if you find out that they really, really like you, you immediately start to like them. And this is just how we are, because we reciprocate, and more on that in a little bit. In the same way, if you give someone a gift, for example, and we looked at that before, you give someone a gift and they naturally start to like you, you disarm them. Maybe someone doesn't have a positive image of you, and you have a meeting or you have to go sit together, and you come to him with a gift immediately, disarms, softens them up. And we discussed in previous episodes that when you have something similar between you and someone else, that also helps people to come together, at least in here. So having similarities or bringing out the similarities, or even starting with the similarities, showing interest in people, all these things are amazing. So you walk into someone's office, maybe you've got some business to do with them, or maybe they're a difficult customer, or maybe they don't want what you're trying to sell them or offer them. But maybe you start off with questions about them, or look at some artifact in their room, or some picture, or some kind of souvenirs or something like that. Find a souvenir maybe from a country you're familiar with, conversation starters, all these things, they disarm. Now, something very important about human nature, we like to reciprocate. We spoke a little bit about reciprocity, but we reciprocate even when it comes to conversation. We said if you're speaking in a loud voice, the other person's voice will match your loudness. If you're speaking quickly, the other person's voice, after a while, subconsciously, he'll start to match your speed in talking. If you whisper to someone, he'll whisper back to you. So let's establish this, that when humans are speaking with each other, they start to match each other. So this is a fact. Now, the fact that you know this now, you use it to your advantage. So someone comes to you and they're angry and they're raising their voice. Just about any person, the majority of people on earth. If you stand in their face and yell, they will yell back. Which is really, if we think about it carefully, it's a strange behavior, because I'm having a great day. You're having a horrible day. I prayed Fajr on time. I had fantastic breakfast. I ate eggs and steak. And I made my adhkar. And I listened to a lecture and read Quran. And I left early for work. So I'm having a great day. You had a horrible day. Missed Fajr. Okay. You didn't have breakfast. Got up late. Clothes all wrinkled and everything. And then you're stuck in traffic. And then we cross paths. Both of us going to our office. We cross paths. And then the person who had a bad day starts yelling at me or gesturing or something like that. Why should I ruin my day because he had a bad day? So people immediately start yelling back and they go to the office in a bad mood now. Why allow someone so much power over you? Or if you encounter someone who's a little rude, the way he speaks to you, very, very rude, or very, very arrogant. And what happens? People immediately match their rudeness or match their arrogance. Now, we already know that we're going to match each other. So why should I match him? Why don't I let him match me? So they tell you, if someone comes to you and let's say they're speaking a little angrily, don't match him. Remain calm and continue to speak in a calm way, and you will notice it with your own self. Like within a few minutes, they're matching you and they're speaking just like you, and they've calmed down without you saying, hey, calm down. Because you know something, what happens when you tell someone to calm down? They don't calm down, right? It doesn't work. Yeah. So don't match them. You remain at however you are. This is one of the techniques they teach you in negotiating courses, for example. Sometimes you don't have the upper hand. You're in the lower position, and the other party that you're negotiating with across from the table, they have the upper hand, and they don't need you. So they come out arrogant. And we did this exercise in a course, and most groups failed to come to an agreement in the exercise. Why? Because one party had the upper hand, so they were arrogant, and the other group didn't like that, so they became arrogant too. Like, you need me, and you're being arrogant. So most teams they didn't come to an agreement because of this. But look past that. And I remember for our group, the other party was being very arrogant because they had the upper hand and we were in the weaker position. So they were being really cocky, really arrogant. When the meeting started, they said, why should I sell to you? Huh? Why should I sell my company to you? Why should I even get anything from you? They were really arrogant, and we didn't match that. So I told my partner, we're just going to keep being friendly. And within 2 minutes, they were being just as friendly as we were. They started off really rude, and in 2 minutes, like we were best friends all of a sudden. And there were also other techniques that were used, but the point is that don't match. Every other group matched, and they lost because now you're arrogant and we're just clashing. That's all we're doing. So don't reciprocate like that. Someone's rude, don't be rude. They're being arrogant, don't be arrogant. They're yelling, don't yell. And you can use certain phrases to disarm people. Certain phrases. So for example, I might just say a simple phrase and it would completely change the man's attitude. Let's go back to the story of the woman. She's been mugged plenty of times. This guy's waiting for her in the alley, and he's lurking like this in a dark alley, waiting for her to come. She knows she's been mugged before, so she said, I was ready for him. And she said, when I got right next to him, he was physically about to jump out. Whatever, take the purse or take the knife out or whatever, the gun. And right as he was about to lunge, she looked him right in the eye. And she's an older woman, right? And he's like a younger guy. She looked him right in the eye and she said, hey, don't I know your mother? And that's it. And he was so shocked, and he stopped, and he's like, I'm not sure, maybe. And he just walked off. So what did she do here? She disarmed him. She really did disarm him. Because now, and first of all, she's speaking with confidence, looking him right in the eye, and she's saying, don't I know your mother? You look familiar to me. So suddenly, it's not like I'm mugging this old lady. I'm mugging auntie so-and-so now. This is my aunt. I know this lady, she's my aunt, or maybe she carried me or changed my diaper at some point. Now I'm going to mug her. So he immediately felt shame, and he left her, and that was the end. So she disarmed this man using just a phrase, and there are many phrases like that. One time we were giving street da'wah in Texas, and they took us to this place, and they took us to basically like a tourist type area. And the people were, not as humble, and they were being very difficult and argumentative. And every time we spoke to someone, they argued about everything. So you tell someone, good afternoon, sir. Well, it's still 11:59. It's not the afternoon yet. Oh, okay. It's like the joke about the guy who argues so much. Someone went to visit him, knocked on his door. He said, who is it? The guy said, it's me. The guy said, no, it's not. Just like that. So some people are like that. They want to argue over everything. Now, what happens when you meet someone like that? You can just say a simple phrase and disarm them. And we used to use this phrase countless times. So someone would argue and argue and argue, and we'd just say, listen, I'm not here to argue. And the minute we'd say that, the people would say, I'm sorry, go ahead. I'm not here to argue either. Go ahead, sir. I'm only here sharing my belief with you. Oh, well, go ahead. So if I'm only sharing what I believe, why are you offended? I'm only sharing what I believe. So phrases like this immediately calm people down. Rarely will you tell someone, I'm not here to argue with you, sir. And then he'll look back at you and say, well, I am. It's very rare. Even though it did happen to me one time with a coworker. So I said, I'm not here to argue. He said, well, I am here to argue. I said, well, then let's stop this conversation because we're not going to get anywhere. We should have a conversation when we want to seek the truth. And if we're just going to argue for the sake of arguing, we're not going to get anywhere. So we'll continue another time. When I said that and I turned away and he just kept staring like this, like, now the next time we have a discussion, he probably won't argue because if he does, it'll be over. And that's why the technique works, disarming people. But like we said, these are things that we have to try. I want to end this episode a little differently by talking about how I've really been teaching like da'wah courses probably for the last 9, maybe 10 years, something like that. And I've been repeating the same thing every single time. I keep saying, just try these techniques. Just try them. Maybe they're just theoretical. Maybe they don't work. Maybe they're not practical. You won't know unless you go out and you try them. And I have like emails and testimonials from people all around the world who've become superb du'at, inshallah, just by going out and trying them. They're not like better than anyone else or smarter than anyone else. All they did is go out and try, and they went out and they tried it. And that's what I'm asking you to do. Try these techniques and you'll be amazed. Sallallahu ala Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.